lean on us.
We are here for you.
You matter.
You are not alone.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Not sure where to turn? The National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there for you 24/7. Call or text 988 or chat at 988sc.org. Whether you're having an emergency or you know someone who needs support now, they can help you take the next step towards finding hope and healing.
There is hope. 988sc.org.
Looking for a fun way to win up to 25 times your money this basketball season? Test your skills on Prize Picks, the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Just select 2 or more players, pick more or less on their projection for a wide variety of stats, and place your entry. It's as easy as that. If you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $250 with just a few taps. Easy gameplay, quick withdrawals, and injury insurance on your picks are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. Ready to test your skills? Join the Prize Picks community of more than 7 million players who have already signed up. Right now, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. Just visit prizepicks.com/get100 and use code GET100. That's code GET100 at prizepicks.com/get100 for a first deposit matchup to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of a nice, ripe girl.
Do we really need weapons for this?
I just like them. They make me feel all manly. The last slayer I killed, she begged for her life. You don't strike me as the begging kind.
You shouldn't have come here.
No, I messed up your doilies and stuff. But I just got so bored. I'll tell you what. As a personal favor from me to you, I'll make it quick. It won't hurt a bit.
No, Spike. It's gonna hurt a lot.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast.
And I'm Kara.
Penny. And this is Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast dedicated to all things Buffy.
This episode, we're going to start with highlights from Season 1 and the first half of Season 2, then talk about Season 2, Episode 3, School Hard, directed by John T. Kretschmer and written by J.W. David. J.W., by the way, Joss Whedon, of course. David Greenwalt and Rob, how do you say that? Deshotel? The original...
I have no
the
idea.
original air date was September 29th of 1997.
I really enjoyed rewatching the episode to get ready for this. I think it's a perfect introduction to the whole series.
It really
actually.
is.
How about you?
It almost feels like a pirate. Pirate? That's how sleepy I am. Pilot? Oh my gosh. I did not have coffee this morning, and I'm going to blame it on that. But, yeah, I think this is kind of where I feel like the series kicks off. If I do rewatches, we're just going to ignore that my lizard is crawling on my head. But when I do rewatches, this is where I usually start. Because, one, obviously, Spike is introduced in this episode, and I just feel like this is when the series really starts going. We have a solid villain, and things start to pick up. Cordelia kind of becomes officially one of the Scoobies, it seems like, with this episode, so it's a good one.
It's great. And we get significant time with Buffy and her mother, which is a really important relationship that hasn't been explored much up to this point. And we all sort of start falling in love with Joyce Summers at this point because it turns out she's not like a stuffy, annoying Gen X mom.
She's kind of fierce in this episode. You see that come out.
Yeah.
And also, just for fun, since, you know, this is a 90s show and it came out so long ago, I figured I'd look up and see what was going on when it originally aired in the world. And a couple fun facts. Well, starts off kind of morbid, but jury selection had just started for the Terry Nichols Oklahoma bombing trial I know.
This is hilarious, Kara, because I did the exact same thing. No.
I love that. I was like,
came up with the same facts. I had that one.
And then I thought, you know, to give a sense of what was going on in the world, the Northern Ireland peace talks had resumed earlier that month. Princess Diana's funeral was earlier that month. The only other things I looked up were the Emmy Awards and what was the number one song at the time. So, you know, the number one song that day, September 29th, 1997, was 4 Seasons of Loneliness by Boyz II Men, which I remember. And Frasier won its 4th Emmy Award for Outstanding Comedy, and Law & Order won its first Outstanding Drama Series Emmy Award.
Nice.
It's like...
Well, in addition to those amazing comments, fun facts, LA Confidential was number 1 at the box office. Also at the box office on the silver screen were In and Out and The Full Monty, both considered to be extremely progressive films because In and Out had a character coming out of the closet. Of course, you know, all the gay characters played by straight characters in that movie because it was the 90s, or straight actors in that movie because it was the 90s, but kind of hilariously, Tom Selleck plays one of the gay characters. The Full Monty was, I don't know if you've seen it, it's an amazing comedy that recently has tried to come out as like a TV series with the same actors. I haven't watched it. But when it came out, it was like a really big deal for a little indie film from the UK. It did really, really
I remember
well
the poster for it from when I was like, I remember seeing that, and then in Blockbuster later on, I remember seeing that cover, but I had not seen either of those movies until a couple years ago, actually, because I was 4th grade, I think, when they came out.
Yeah, you were a little young.
In and Out was enjoyable. I remember not being allowed to see it, and so I wanted to watch it for the longest time. And it's definitely interesting now watching it with, you know, today's lens. That's for sure. I love that you also looked up fun facts about that time in history.
That's great. I was like, oh my god, our brains are on the same wavelength.
Perfect.
This is great. Awesome. So yeah, the 90s were a different time. I also thought it was so funny watching the episode, the incredibly awkward break for commercial.
Right?
It's so funny in a streaming environment because it's like there's one that really jumped out at me in the episode where, you know, Buffy's walking and then it you know, goes to black and then it comes back and it sort of backs up a second and you get to watch Buffy walking again, and I'm like, God, that must be so weird for people who haven't watched TV
are not
with commercials.
used to that. It definitely
they're like,
it
what's
adds
happening?
to the nostalgia of a rewatch.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I love how we do still have the, you know, Giles Watcher voiceover in this episode. I can't remember when that actually goes away.
I think it makes it most of season 2 before they take it away.
I kind of like it.
I like it for like the first 2 or 3 times I hear it, and then I'm like, skip. Yeah.
That's probably why, since it's been like 4 years since I did a full rewatch, I'm still like, oh, Giles. This is great.
Yeah. So funny. All right, let's talk about season 1, which we're not covering in full, but we have a little summary of it all for everybody. So just to catch you up, Buffy Summers, high school sophomore, is kicked out of her school in Los Angeles for being a troublemaker and possibly burning down the gym. It's unclear. And so she moves to Sunnydale with her mother, who's recently divorced. That's Joyce Summers. Buffy meets Rupert Giles right away. He's the school librarian at the high school, but he is also her watcher, sent to Sunnydale by the mysterious Watchers Council to guide Buffy. He tells her about the Hellmouth. He says that it has mystical energy that draws evil beings toward it. Buffy initially resists her destiny as the chosen one. She tells him she's retired, but eventually accepts, her calling and starts to settle into her new high school. She makes friends pretty quickly with Willow and Xander after the two of them find out about her whole secret life. She has to rescue them from vampires right away in the first episode. And develops kind of an uneasy relationship with Cordelia, the resident popular mean girl, rich girl character. Over the course of season 1, Buffy fights vampires, witches, nightmares, possessed humans, curses, dating, and bullies.
Typical high school.
Yeah, it's very, actually, that sounds a lot like my high school experience. No hyenas, but...
Oh gosh, the hyena episode. I forgot.
I love the
about
hyena
that.
episode. It's so ridiculous. It's really ridiculous. And I love the episode with Clea Duvall. It's at the end of season 1, and she's a student who just feels completely ignored, and she's so ignored that she just turns invisible.
That one is brilliant. To this day,
it's really, really good. Yeah.
Well done, and so appropriate with high school. It's just... Ugh.
Completely. So there's a mysterious stranger in Sunnydale named Angel. He wears lots of long coats and dark colors, and he's very handsome. He shows up to help Buffy from time to time when she's in danger. He's very mysterious. And eventually he does reveal the truth about himself, which is that he's a vampire. But he has been cursed by gypsies with the return of his human soul. So he feels torment for all the evil things he's done as a vampire. And he's come to Sunnydale seeking redemption. I just want to add a side note about the word gypsy. It's not a politically correct word. If the show were being made today, they would call them Romani. That's what those people prefer to be called, but it's all over this show, so it's just dated language, and we're just going to have to deal with it, but I want to acknowledge it.
Definitely one of those ways you can tell that this was a 90s show. Later on in the season 1 finale, Buffy faces the Master, even though a prophecy foretells her death at his hands. The Master actually succeeds in getting himself untrapped by the Hellmouth and ends up drowning Buffy, so she does die periodically. Fortunately, Xander revives her, and she's able to defeat the Master and closes the Hellmouth. And, the first season of Buffy is a very uneven season, and the fashion is very special and reminiscent of the 90s. It's truly awful. It really is.
It's ill-fitting bargain basement clothes. It's
and
pretty bad.
I do agree. The best episodes are the 3rd, 6th, 7th, and 11th. Just in case you're wanting to do a rewatch. If you've never seen Buffy, there's no harm in going back and watching all of them. But don't let that discourage you from continuing on with the show, because there are some gems in season 1, and it just gets better and better.
Yeah, I just don't want people to watch episode 1 and episode 2 and be like, I don't think this show is for me. Don't judge it based on the first season. So season 2 opens after summer break, so they're returning for their junior year of high school. And Buffy returns to Sunnydale after spending the summer with her father in LA, and she is out of sorts. She has a lot of lingering issues with her whole death and resurrection, and she's mean to her friends, and there's a whole episode about her just being in a bad mood. She eventually works out her issues by destroying what remains of the Master, and for reasons I've never understood, The master's bones remain, even though all other vampires turn to dust when they get staked. But anyway, the master's bones are around and Buffy destroys them. That's episode 1 of season 2. And then in the second episode of season 2, a bunch of bodies go missing from graves, all like teenage girls' bodies. And Buffy, of course, investigates and eventually figures out that this nerdy kid has been creating a Frankenstein-style girl monster. And at first they think it's for him to have as like a sex toy or something, but it turns out it's for his brother who died in, I think, a car accident, and then this nerdy kid reanimated him. And it turns out they need a living brain. Like, all the other parts can come from dead bodies, but they need a living brain. So the guy kidnaps, of course, Cordelia, because she's like the prettiest girl in school, and he's trying to make a bride for his brother. Buffy saves him. It's really sad. It's sad because it's about grief, right? Like, losing a brother when you're young like that is devastating.
And the scenes with his mother, you see that she's rewatching all of his old, like, great football games, and in her grief process is essentially ignoring the son that remains. So it's a kind of a odd and off-putting theme behind it with building a teenage girl, but there are some pretty, poignant comments on grief in that one.
Yeah, and Buffy can save the day in that Cordelia doesn't have her head chopped off, and this guy is not going to make any more Frankenstein monsters, but like, he still has that grief. His brother is still dead. The mother is still ignoring him. Like,
very sad.
One of the things I love about Buffy the Vampire Slayer is that it shows the dark side of adolescence and the sad things that are going on in people's lives, and it externalizes them as these monsters and demons and magic, but they are incredibly relatable problems that the characters are going through.
I can see that even more.
It's fantastic.
As an adult watching it.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
As a kid, you're just like, monsters.
Like, oh, this is weird. Still entertaining.
So we are going to go on to talk a little bit more in depth about season 2, episode 3, School Hard. First, a fun fact. It is an overt homage to the movie Die Hard. That's why the name is School Hard, and that's why there are scenes where Buffy, like, crawls through the ceiling vents and stuff. That's a very intentional homage to Die Hard.
Fantastic.
Which I enjoyed, thinking about Spike as Hans Gruber.
Oh, yeah.
And picturing him getting thrown off the top of the Nakatomi Tower. I was into that.
Oh, gosh. I love it.
So, Kara, do you want to start us off with your first point?
Sure. So it was difficult to pick just, one to start off with. And I know we're going to have to talk about it. It's the first appearance in the show of Spike. And Spike arriving as this new villain figure. And he's kind of dynamic from the moment he's on screen. And it's no secret already that I just absolutely love Spike, and I think you do too. So him finally making an appearance was my number one point, and getting to see his interaction with Buffy for the first time, that moment he first sees her in the bronze, and even getting to see his first little interaction with Joyce is something that's pretty great. So
he's such a fully realized character already. When in that first moment, right, he destroys the Welcome to Sunnydale sign. Just drives right over it. Who gives a crap? And then he steps out of his like muscle car, right? It's like a cool vintage car. I think it's a DeSoto. Not that I'm a car person. And he's got like booze boots and this long leather jacket, and then the camera pans up and you've got the bleach blonde, Billy Idol style hair, and he's got the sneer like Sid Vicious and smoking a cigarette, and like as a viewer, you're immediately like, oh, what's gonna happen next? Like, oh, this guy looks fun. And he does not disappoint. He's constantly entertaining.
He's such a fully fleshed out character. Like, exactly who he is from the moment he steps on screen.
Yeah.
And it is kind of like
James Marsters. Oh, he's such a good actor.
He does a great job with Spike too. I think he is so thoughtful in the choices that he makes as an actor for Spike. And he says, I believe, I can't remember which interview it is, I tried to find a link, but he played Spike as being attracted to Buffy from the get-go. And that comes across in that one glance when he sees her at the Bronze. And they already have this kind of witty banter back and forth. And I just remember the first time watching this when I was, 9 or so, I was immediately like, who is this guy? Like, this is fun.
Yeah. He's so much more interesting in some ways than Angel. Angel is this like tortured, like, lurking in the shadows, dropping, dire facts and then like hiding, like leaving the room. And Spike he's loud and he's present and he's full of life considering he's dead. Right? He's so energetic and he's got amazing body language. He just like, he moves all the time. Like he knows you think he's sexy. Like that's just,
that leather coat on him compared, and Angel does also often appear in a leather coat. With Spike, it moves with him. It's like a part of him. Yeah. And with Angel, every time I see him standing there in leather, he just seems so stiff and reserved. Yep. And there's even, like you said, Angel will show up and deliver some sort of brooding commentary or, words of wisdom and disappear. That quote that Xander says in this episode kind of perfectly encapsulates that, where Angel's standing there and Xander says something to him and he just is already walked out. He's like, I'm gonna have to get a collar with a bell on it for that guy. Like, it's true. Yeah. Angel is mysterious and he's lurks, and slippery. Spike is 100% in your face immediately.
Yeah.
Lean on us.
We are here for you.
You matter.
You are not alone.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Not sure where to turn? The National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there for you 24/7. Call or text 988 or chat at 988sc.org. Whether you're having an emergency or you know someone who needs support now, they can help you take the next step towards finding hope and healing.
There is hope. 988sc.org.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
And one of the things that I so appreciate about Spike, and by the way, this was one of my points too, nice. So I'm just merging with you, is that he shows how smart he is right off the bat, right? He checks Buffy out at the Bronze, and then he sets up a test. And, he gets he never cares about his minions, right? Spike, sorry, this is a little bit of a spoiler, but Spike has minions and over time, and he does not care if they get killed. So he sets up his minion to get slain by Buffy, and she does so, and they have a little moment in the alley where he says he's going to kill her on Saturday. And it's so smart that he lured her outside. He set up a vampire kill so that He could watch her work. We haven't really seen that kind of cleverness from other vampires on the show, and it sets him apart. And then, you know, Angel, of course, with his dire, like, oh, he's worse than other vampires. Don't underestimate him. And then he disappears, like annoying Angel.
But it's true with Spike. Like, they do an excellent job establishing how he is different than other vampires. You know, when he walks in and is talking to the Anointed One, and there's that other vampire who makes a comment about being at the crucifixion, and Spike's kind of introduction is like scoffing at him. Like, you know, if every vampire who was actually at the crucifixion, you know, said they were at the crucifixion was actually there, it would have been like Woodstock. And he goes on to talk about how he actually was at Woodstock. And he just has such authority immediately. And we find out that he's, you know, killed slayers before, which is a pretty big deal. And I do like how there's a parallel between Spike not necessarily being like other vampires and Buffy also not necessarily being like other slayers, in that, you know, he observes she's got a family and friends and a life for herself outside of slaying. So the setup of these two being opposed is,
but also kind of parallel.
It's so well done.
And Spike is attached to Drusilla. Drusilla is weak and ailing for reasons that are kind of vague, but it has something to do with something that happened in Prague where she almost died. And Spike's goal in coming to Sunnydale in the first place is to heal her so that she can be at full strength killing again. And they have this great, like, sort of kinky scene where they've got Sheila tied up in the bedroom, and they like fool around a little bit in front of her while she's like tied up and gagged. And then Spike is like, eat something, and like shoves Sheila at Drusilla. And I just think about like Sheila, who's this like bad girl who thinks she's so tough because she like dates guys named Meat Pie or
and
whatever.
Smoked in 5th grade.
Yeah, like, yeah, that's small time bad girl stuff when you're faced with this several 100-year-old vampire who might think the dolls are real people and needs to eat you to stay alive. It's just it's funny to see Sheila go from like, I'm such a badass to like, fuck, I'm in trouble.
Oh no, this is not good.
Yeah,
this is
not good.
Drusilla is, I mean, she's another character that's just so well fleshed out, and she is creepy. Like, from the very beginning, the way she talks and her movements are just kind of chilling. And her dynamic with Spike. Yeah,
she doesn't seem as human as other vampires. Definitely she seems more almost possessed. We'll get more Drusilla backstory in a much future episode. But the actor Juliet Landau, who is Martin Landau's granddaughter, I think, was offered the role without an audition based on the movie Ed Wood. Joss Whedon saw Ed Wood and was like, "That, I want her to play a vampire on my show."
Excellent
And then
choice.
I think he just was like, show me what you think it will be like. Like, I think she creates a lot of what we see on screen for Drusilla. She's a remarkable actor, and it's a really fun. I can imagine if I were an actor, how fun it would be to play a character like that.
So fun, because it's such a good juxtaposition of cruelty and innocence, because she's all in white, she's kind of ethereal, she has this doll collection that she's caring for, but in an instant she's cruel as anything. And when she kind of cuts Spike with her fingernail and licks the blood, you're like, oh, okay, so this is the dynamic that we have here.
Yeah, this couple's not like other couples.
But he also, that's another thing I think that sets Spike apart, is you see how much he truly cares for Drusilla. And it's almost, it's kind of tender in the way that he treats her. And we have not seen that dynamic at all between vampires before.
It's true. All the other vampires that we've seen up to this point in the series, except for Angel, are just like soulless, eating, killing machines. Every now and then they have a funny line, but most of them don't seem to have attachments to each other or to anything, and it makes Spike and Drusilla just jump off the page.
That's true.
Like,
oof.
These characters matter. My understanding is that Spike was originally only intended to be in like 2 or 3 episodes, but the character was so fantastic and beloved that they revised it. I love those stories. That's like Daryl Dixon, right? He was like a made for TV, wasn't in the comics. Nobody knew if he would last, and he turns out to be awesome. Jesse Pinkman is another character who wasn't meant to last the whole series. That's Breaking Bad, in case you haven't watched Breaking Bad. And then he's just so good that they just changed the way they were going to do the series to incorporate him. And I love when that happens. I remember stories about when Lost was being cast, that there were a couple of actors that came through and they were like, we don't want you for this role. We're going to write a role for you. Like, and that the characters in Lost, some of them were just like created to suit particular actors, which is just cool.
Jorge Garcia as Hurley, if I remember correctly, that was one of those.
Yeah, and I think Saeed was another one.
That is good. Like, it's hard to imagine any of those shows without those characters. And it's the same thing with Spike and Buffy. Ugh.
Yeah. He's part of the DNA.
It's true.
Of the show. And often he's the best thing of any given episode. Let's see if I had other stuff about Spike.
Oh, I guess it is important to point out that Spike calls Angel his sire. He makes that reference. And Xander is just kind of like, what the hell is a sire? Like, what does that mean? And I know there's been talk before among Buffy fans about whether or not that was a mistake, that they just had thought, they were going to make Angel his sire. And turns out, I guess that's a little spoilery, turns out that Joss Whedon in interviews ended up saying that a sire can also mean any of your vampire ancestors. So, anybody that's in your lineage would be considered a sire. And the master...
And Angel is part of Spike's lineage.
So, whether or not it's the person who actually turned you into a vampire, Joss Whedon had kind of course-corrected, I guess, in interviews afterwards to explain that. But I think that's the first time we have a mention of Angel as a sire in the series.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think even of the concept in general, I don't know if the concept has been brought up before this.
Probably not.
Even when we meet in the very first season, Darla is in an episode, and she is Angel's sire, but I don't think they. Sorry, God, I am not doing a good job of avoiding spoilers. So James Marsters as an actor has become really prolific in sci-fi, in the science fiction world. He's been on a lot of other shows that are part of the CW, which is the resulting network after the WB and UPN merged. He was on Smallville. He was in, I want to say Legends of Tomorrow. He was in the Marvel Runaways TV show. He was definitely in Doctor Who. It's just he pops up a lot, and it's always to this day surprising to me that he doesn't really have a British accent. I'm always like, oh, that's right, he's an American.
He's very convincing, and I am not a judge at all. Like, I have no credibility in terms of judging how good a British accent is, but he convinces me every time. Mm-hmm. And he's supposed to be one that is also kind of a great person at the cons to interact with, so that just makes me appreciate him even more.
Yeah, he seems like a good person. That's awesome. All right, I'm gonna jump in with a few Buffyverse basics, just in case anyone didn't pick this stuff up. The Slayer, one teenage girl chosen to fight the forces of darkness. The opening monologue says, "Into every generation a Slayer is born," but really there's multiple Slayers, because when a Slayer dies, another one is called, and most Slayers are only Slayers for like 3 or 4 years. So it's not once a generation, it's like often. Watchers, we don't have a lot of information about the Watchers Council at this point. We just know that it's a bunch of people in England who have a lot of knowledge about the history and lore around demons and monsters and magic and stuff like that. And that Giles is one of these people. He's a Watcher. The fact that he's a librarian is kind of perfect, because he's the source of all the knowledge that Buffy needs about, how to kill certain demons, or what they might be, doing in Sunnydale, or, various things like that help her do her job. He also is responsible for training her. So there's a lot of scenes of them, like, she's like doing calisthenics or target practice or whatever with him when they're having conversations. The Hellmouth is underneath Sunnydale High School, and it is a source of dark mystic energy that draws things to Sunnydale. So that's why Sunnydale has such a high concentration of creepy crawlies and vampires and stuff. It's a portal to a hell dimension. It's unclear to me, even after all this time, if it's like the hell or just a hell. But there's like monsters and stuff in there. And then vampires. They are undead beings that are created when an existing vampire drains the blood of a human victim and makes that human drink the vampire blood. That's how they become a vampire. Usually the human looks like they're dead for a little while, often long enough for them to be buried, and then they like crawl their way out of the grave. They have all their memories from when they were human, but they don't have a soul. And they need blood to survive, and they're basically like killing machines. They are stronger than humans, faster than humans, have better reflexes, have, stronger senses, which is really funny because they don't breathe, but they all seem to have an amazing sense of smell. To kill them, stake through the heart, beheading, holy water, and sunlight. They're repulsed by crosses. I think you can kill them with fire. You can burn a vampire.
In the Buffyverse, you can, for sure.
Yeah, in this universe, yeah. And they can't come in unless you invite them. That rule does important. And I think that's all the big ones.
Those are the keys, that's for sure. I'm trying to think. Oh, there was one other moment that I thought was a fun Spike moment with Spike and Angel, more of a reference to the 90s and of the time, when Angel is essentially pretending to be Angelus, who Spike is familiar with, and he says something to the effect of like tricking Buffy with his nice guy act, so she'll get off his back and all that. And Spike says, oh, they're still falling for the good old Anne Rice routine, which, immediately, if you're familiar at all with Anne Rice's books, the, movie Interview with a Vampire, Angel is very much, tortured like Louis. And Spike is definitely a little bit more to Lestats. And I love that exchange so much. And how we as an audience, at first you're like, oh, maybe he's falling for this. Like, good job, Angel. Angel's coming in to save the day again. And then when you essentially see that Spike immediately called him on it and immediately knew something was off, that just heightens him as a potential villain even more. Where it's like, oh, yeah.
He's smart. He's really smart. he's got all these vampires with him when he attacks the school, and they're all dingbats, right? They're like, the Slayer either went that way or that way. It's like, okay, so any of the ways. And then that one guy who's like, oh, this door is really solid. And then Spike says, use your head, and takes the guy's head and slams it into the firebox, the break glass in case of fire, and gets an axe out and hands it to the guy.
Lovely.
Oh my God, it's so funny. I'm like, yeah, use your head.
I do love, I guess that was another one that can bring me to another one of my points, which is Principal Snyder in this episode.
Oh, yeah.
He is just, so insufferable. But I like, I enjoy when Principal Snyder's on screen. Like, I think it's entertaining. I think he's funny. But the fact that he's immediately like, it's a gang on PCP when they all burst in. I remember first time thinking, oh my God, this guy's such an idiot. But we see at the end when he has an exchange with one of the police officers who shows up, it's like, what do you want us to say? Like the usual gang on PCP, like really indicating that Snyder has a better idea of what's going on in his town and in his school than he lets on. And I love that even that one little moment gives more to his character. It's a little bit more character development and makes him a bit more mysterious and
believable.
Yes.
Like, it's hard to believe how oblivious most people in Sunnydale are to all the monsters in Sunnydale.
Especially with the face changes with vampires.
Yeah.
It's just like, come on, guys. Like, what do you think is going on? It's like, last I checked,
like,
PCP does not change your face like that.
Yeah. How many people have died of suspicious neck wounds? Like, when are you going to start? Like, I don't know why everyone in Sunnydale doesn't wear, like, a metal collar. Just, like, protecting their neck at all times.
It's like that medical examiner must be the busiest and worst medical examiner in all.
Or that medical examiner is also a vampire and just, like, uses that as a cover to get blood.
It'd be pretty smart.
Gross.
Oh, gosh.
That is the plot, basically, of the show iZombie.
I love that show.
The main character is turned into a zombie, and in order to get access to brains, she goes to work at a morgue.
It's a bit more ethically sourced.
It's a pretty funny show. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about Sarah Michelle Gellar, who is in the lead role as Buffy. I think we should try to not spend a ton of time talking about all the actors all at once, but like let's sprinkle it through when they have a really big good episode. Sarah Michelle Gellar was a child actor. She was discovered like in New York City on the streets or something. She went to the high school for the performing arts in New York City, the one that was famously copied for the show and movie Fame. Right before Buffy, she had been playing a mean girl on All My Children for many years called Kendall Hart, and she did win a Daytime Emmy for that performance. And then she auditioned for the role of Cordelia originally because, mean girl, but I'm glad they saw something else in her because I think she's great as Buffy. She's played some other really noteworthy roles. She was Daphne in the live-action Scooby-Doo movies alongside her future husband, Freddie Prinze. She was in I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream 2, The Grudge, some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie I've never seen, a movie called Southland Tales, but my all-time favorite movie of hers is Cruel Intentions, which is a teen drama version of Dangerous Liaisons. Came out in 1999, and she plays Catherine, I think it's Myrtle or Myrtle. And she is amazing in that role. That movie is so good. It's like one of the earliest we see Reese Witherspoon in a lead role and Ryan Phillippe. That's where they met, and they later got married. Also, Selma Blair is in it. She's amazing. It is so good.
Joshua Jackson
so good.
is a very different character in that movie than he usually portrays, and it's fun to see. That's one that I should not have been allowed to see in 5th grade. I think I was when I saw it, as a 20-something-year-old, when I watched it again, I got a better appreciation for it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. I really recommend it. Maybe we'll cover it on a future episode. Like in between seasons.
That would be fun.
Most recently, Sarah Michelle Gellar is in a show on Paramount Plus called The Wolf Pack. I watched the first season. It's pretty good. It's not as good as Buffy, but it's pretty good. She had some bad luck. She was in a show that was very well received and got great ratings and critical acclaim, starring opposite Robin Williams. And then he died, and that show got pulled, of course. It was a bummer because I was really excited to see her back on top because I think she's really talented. Playing Buffy earned her 5 Teen Choice Awards, a Saturn Award, and a Golden Globe Award nomination. A lot of people say she was horribly overlooked and that there should have been a lot more Emmys, but the Emmys typically, especially back in the 90s, just did not pay any attention to genre shows. And it's still kind of true. It takes a lot for a genre show to get Emmy nominations. Last of Us got a bunch this year, and that was kind of shocking.
Yeah, which I always wondered, if, say, AMC had picked up Last of Us instead of HBO, I wonder how much attention that show would have gotten from, award shows.
HBO does always clean up at the Emmys. They're basically up against themselves. It's like Last of Us versus White Lotus.
Yeah, that's true. In any iteration of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's just fun. But she really did. I agree that Sarah Michelle Gellar did not get enough credit for Buffy because it's such a fine line. She's playing your normal teenage girl who's worried about school and parent-teacher conferences and not getting in trouble with her mom or the principal. And, the way that she talks to Willow about Angel, especially in this season, is so just, innocent. And you really... you really see how young she is, and at the same time she is this excellent fighter and this powerful character, and she just kind of radiates both strength and vulnerability at the same time, and I think that can be incredibly hard to pull off. And I know that Joss Whedon, in coming up with this idea for Buffy being the blonde girl is no longer the damsel in distress, she's the heroine who's kind of kick-ass. And I think that could have gone, a few different ways that would have been problematic and over-sexualized, and the way
and
Sarah
action
Michelle...
figure Barbie,
Yes. A little too, maybe Tomb Raider or something like that.
Too badass.
Yeah. But Sarah Michelle Gellar makes Buffy feel so real and lived in.
Yeah.
And
she's soft.
Yes. She's it's so good.
And she really, I think that Sarah Michelle Gellar at the time was in her 20s playing a teenager, but it's incredibly believable that she is afraid of getting expelled by the principal in that meeting. Her eyes are huge, and she's like, it could have been nice. She's panicking. She's insecure. She has trouble with French class, right? She needs help studying, and she calls herself an idiot, an imbecile, and I never caught this line before, but after Willow says to her, you said whatever it is, the cow something at midnight, and then she goes, and you said it wrong. Buffy says, je stink, which I thought was so funny, and I don't remember hearing that before. I was
good.
That's good. You do stink at French, Buffy.
Well, and even Willow quickly calculating even if Angel had only been on 2 dates a year and he's been alive for 200 years, that's 400 women, and Buffy, that gets to her. And as a teenage girl, it absolutely would. And it's just, they do a great job of balancing the kind of fantastical elements of this show that, you know, we call them the Scooby Gang affectionately. Like, they're kind of, you know, these monster fighters who are also fighting metaphoric monsters in high school, dealing with, you know, first loves, and Xander finding that tampon in Buffy's purse and like freaking out. Like, stuff like that just adds so much to the dynamics of the show. And I think that's one of the main reasons that it continues to this day to be so popular, and people are still finding it and falling in love with it.
I agree. It's the characters are very well rounded and lived in, like you said, and interesting, right? Like, there's a lot of ways they could have written, you know, Willow, the nerdy student, that wouldn't have been so charming and so like quirky in her own particular way. Definitely. Right? She's not a typical nerd. She's her own kind of nerd. And it's delightful. And then, well, Xander, I have a lot of problems with Xander. He often says like really inappropriate things. He's constantly sexualizing Buffy
all the time.
Like, just all the time. And he does not take no for an answer from her. Like, she tries so hard to hint to him so many times. But he's not boring. He's funny. He has an interesting, like, home life that we'll learn about later. And, you know, he often has really, really great quippy lines. He's really often the one who sums up a situation in modern terms.
It's true.
I love when he does that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, Giles will come out with some like long description of some like demonic whatever, and then Xander will be like, so he's just hungry for lollipops or whatever it is. It'll be one sentence, and it'll be hilarious.
That's true. But I think that's a good point too, is there are so many characters that could have been, you know, their stereotypes, like Willow being the nerd, or even Cordelia being the mean girl. Charisma Carpenter is another one who does a great job of, you know, bringing more to her character and more nuance. Because I think Cordelia, I may be remembering this wrong, but I don't think her character was supposed to have been as prominently featured.
I think
in
you're
the
right
show.
about that. Yeah.
And just the way that Charisma portrayed her kept him coming back in, like her banter with Xander. It's just, you know, they all feel like their own people. Nobody feels like, you know, a two-dimensional, stereotypical high school movie character. And
no. I mean, some of the like really, really side characters are, but anyone that's got a name usually has like an interesting story to them. And
true.
It is the key to why people love the show so much, is that you really do grow to love the characters, even especially because of their flaws. Like, you can really identify with them. Like, I can identify with Buffy being almost equally concerned about her hair as she is with this like feast of St. Vigus.
Yeah.
You know, she's like, this conditioner, this new cream rinse is neither creamy nor rinsey. Like, I'm like, yeah, that would annoy me too if I'd spent all my allowance on it. And like, you know, she wants not to disappoint her mother, and she doesn't know how to make lemonade.
I love that. Cordelia, have some lemonade. Is one of my favorite lines.
God, the idea of lemonade with no sugar appeals actually to me a little bit, because I like really sour tasting things. But Allison Hannigan does a really good job of portraying what that must taste like when she quickly puts the cup down and then goes, "It's good."
Don't worry, I'll support here.
Yeah. I think that Sarah Michelle Gellar was the only actor going into the series that had like a somewhat recognizable name. Charisma Carpenter had been a cheerleader, I think, before, professional cheerleader. We talked about Anthony Stewart Head last time in those Taster's Choice commercials, but Nicholas Brendan was an unknown. Allison Hannigan had like a, decent kid acting career before this, but she really took off after with like American Pie and then How I Met Your Mother and everything like that. I heard a story somewhere that David Boreanaz was discovered while he was walking his dog.
I think I remember reading. That is so random.
I mean, it's very Los Angeles, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think he was already in LA. He was trying to be an actor. And then, like, somebody saw him and was like, hey, do you want to be an actor? And he was like, yes. He's gone on to have an amazing career.
Oh, yeah. Bones.
I mean, yeah. I loved Bones, even though it's kind of formulaic. I really enjoyed watching it. And what did that run? Like 12 seasons or something? It was crazy.
I can't remember. It was a long time.
Yeah. And then he had another show right after that called, like, Navy SEALs or something.
Oh, yeah.
I tried to watch it. It wasn't really my thing.
I think my mom, that was one of those shows that my mom definitely got into.
Yeah. Those are big network shows. He's like a reliable star for the big networks. CBS, those are both on CBS. They must love him over there. I mean, Bones was a wild success. He'll always be Angel to me.
Yes. It's hard to see him as anything else.
It
Although
really is.
Seeley Booth is probably a close second. Like, that worked for me.
I mean, let's not mince words. The man is very handsome.
He really is.
As Seeley Booth, he gets to do a lot of really, really cool looking action stuff where he's always the hero. Yeah. He looks amazing, and he gets to be funny sometimes on that show. He didn't get to be funny much on Buffy, and then when he gets his spinoff, the show called Angel, they give him more opportunities to be funny, which I appreciate because he's very funny. I think
he heals a little in his spinoff, and you get a little bit of lighter Angel, which is fun. I won't
still
spoil
plenty of brooding.
There's
still plenty of brooding, but there's just moments of joy. I'm just gonna bring up the topic. We started on it a little bit of Joyce Summers.
Yes.
Listeners, if you're watching Buffy for the first time, just I don't know, hold on to the picture of Joyce in your head when the show gets a little hard to handle. She's the anchor. She's the source of love and softness and normalcy in Buffy's world. And she just gets better and better from this point on. Like, she just becomes more and more of a character.
I love Joyce. And I love how we see her kind of, take charge on her own throughout this episode, and how much she does trust Buffy, because when she's stuck in that room with Snyder, and then I can't remember the other teacher.
It's just some other dude
that they're in there with, and they're trying to get out and like go through the window, and she's just like, Buffy said to stay put. Like, what are you doing? Like, basically listen to my daughter. And she trusts her, and she kind of stands up for her with Snyder, and she gets kind of snarky with Snyder, and he makes that comment, I'm beginning to see a mother-daughter resemblance.
Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, Joyce, get him. Like, yeah.
This is like, you heard what Buffy said. And then, of course, how, how she kind of protects Buffy from Spike in that moment.
I mean, she clocks Spike on the head with an axe. Yeah.
And that whole, get the hell away from my daughter may or may not come up again. But
iconic moment.
Oh, such a good moment. And Spike, I think that's when he kind of turns around and is like, women. And the Summers women will, create problems for a few people in the future. And I love that dynamic starting to come out.
Yeah. She doesn't take shit from anyone, right? No. She doesn't take shit from her daughter, but she's also not going to take shit against her daughter, right? She tells Snyder to fuck off, basically. And and then, that conversation she has with Buffy at the end, where Buffy's like, so, how much trouble am I in? And Joyce is like, you're not in any, because what I saw was that my daughter is brave and resourceful and thinks of other people during a crisis. And I love all those things. And Buffy's, of course it has to become funny. Buffy's like, how long is it going to last? And Joyce is like, oh, about a week and a half.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful moment between a mother and daughter, right? It's like, I see you. This is what I see. And I love what I see. Mm-hmm. And who you are is a person I wanted you to be. Like, it's lovely.
It's a nice moment. And the whole, Buffy acknowledges and kind of, lets her mom know that she's under a lot of pressure. And Joyce says, wait till you get a job. And Buffy has like one of the most important jobs in the world. And it's just, that must be such a difficult dynamic as for being the Slayer as a teenage girl, having, we see her chest and her makeup vanity instead of, just makeup, hairbrushes, all of that. She's got holy water and stakes and weapons, and I love that wait till you get a job, like kind of normal mother-daughter moment.
Buffy's like, you mean it's a destiny?
Yeah. It's like, all right,
I don't even
Mom.
get paid. It's not even a job. They don't even pay me. Mm-hmm. That is a sore subject with me. Buffy should get paid.
Oh yeah. You have to sacrifice your life essentially for humanity, but no compensation.
Yeah.
Just responsibility.
One of my favorite lines is when Cordelia says, "Is that your mother? That is a woman who knows how to moisturize." Yeah. And that line goes through my head literally every time I put on cream before I go to bed. I'm like, that so woman knows how to moisturize. Because, Joyce looks good for her age. That's what Cordelia's saying. Mm-hmm. And of course she uses it as an opportunity to be mean to Buffy. And
of course.
And, tell her that it skipped a generation.
I do love whenever Cordelia kind of pokes at Buffy. It's so silly. Like, she'll make a comment about her hair, and meanwhile, it's just, Sarah Michelle Gellar looking beautiful.
Yeah. Like
normal. And I was like, but it's so high school Mean Girl, too. Like, those little digs here and there. It's just, Cordelia is so special. I do love... now I'm drawing a blank. Dang it. What was I going to say?
Jenny Calendar?
Oh, that is one of those moments that I love with Miss Calendar and Giles when they are standing there, at the table talking to Buffy and Willow and Xander as they're getting kind of set up. And he's making a reference to slang when Principal Snyder walks in, and he corrects it to slaves. You're all slaves to the television. And he and Miss Calendar put on their teacher fronts and being very formal. And it's just, I forgot how much I love watching Giles kind of walk that line, because he is he's the school librarian. He's this authority figure, and I think we also see how much he really cares about Buffy in this episode when he's trying to remove the barricade in the library where he and Miss Calendar are, because he's responsible for Buffy and he wants to make sure she's all right, which for his role as a Watcher and her role as Slayer, it's supposed to be this kind of mentor-mentee, trainer-trainee dynamic, and we start to see that Giles cares about Buffy, perhaps more so like a father or an uncle, some sort of family member, and I love that about him. I think it makes...
There's real love there.
Yep.
And you're right, you start to see it developing mostly in this season and in that moment. And she's like, Giles, my mother is in that room. I know you'll get her out. And they have this ability to communicate. She says that, and there's a year's worth of knowing each other in the sentence. She's like, I know you'll get my mother out. And she does know it. And he's like, oh, you're right, I will. It's pretty fantastic. And I think I spent a lot of time when this show was on wishing I had a Giles in my own life, a sort of mentor figure who always seemed to know the right answer to things and cared about my life intensely the way that Giles cares about Buffy.
That's nice.
it's not just a father thing. It's there's something else about their relationship, and it's really beautiful.
There's so much mutual respect at the same time, and guidance. Like, he wants what's best for her, and not just in terms of her being the most effective slayer or anything like that. He actually cares about her in general. I can't remember if I think it may be an episode later on in this season. When is the reptile frat house episode?
Oh, yeah. We're not going to be covering that one, but I think it's actually next after this. That might be right. It's either 4 or 5.
That is right. Yeah. And there's an exchange between, Giles. This is not hugely spoilery or anything, but between Giles and Willow, where Buffy kind of lies to Giles about she wants to go to a party, and she tells Giles she's got homework that she needs to do, and he's been kind of getting on her to train, and Willow scolds him a bit at one point, being like, look, she deserves a break and to be like a normal teenager after a while. And Giles's reaction is not to he doesn't get angry and tell her never to lie again. He understands that dynamic and the importance of her being a teenager. And I think that sets him apart from what you would think your typical Watcher would be like. And I love watching their relationship develop, and the relationship between Giles and Mrs. Calendar.
Yeah.
That's fun to watch.
It is. And this is the beginning of the running joke about how, he really knows how to show a girl a good time by taking her to like massacres and things.
Oh yeah. I will say, I think my favorite line or couple of lines in this episode is where we cut from Spike talking to, the Anointed, trying to find out what he can about Buffy, and he says, so how about the Slayer? Is she tough? And that's when it cuts immediately to her brushing out her hair and saying ow, and talking about her cream rinse is neither creamy nor rinsey. I was like, oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. It's a really good segue, and it sort of encapsulates all of Buffy, right? It's like,
yep,
she's tough in some ways, and in other ways, very, very not.
Telling.
It's really adorable. One of my favorite lines is after the Woodstock thing, where he's like, I fed off a flower child and spent the next 6 hours looking at my hand.
Yeah.
And then he goes, so who do you kill for fun around here?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh,
just casual conversation.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, and we haven't talked about it, but first of all, that he calls the Anointed One the annoying one.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. Because I never liked the Anointed One. When they introduced him in season 1, I was like, this is dumb.
No.
So when he kills him at the end and he's like, I should have done this sooner, I'm like, yeah, you should have. Like, I'm glad that kid is gone.
Absolutely.
Get rid of the Anointed One.
Such a superior villain. Like, at least the Master was, creepy and seemed to have this history behind him, and with the Anointed One, I was like, this kid's weird. I don't like it. Like, yeah. I don't care.
It doesn't do any. He didn't seem interesting at all. Like, I don't know. I've seen child actors that really could have carried a season as a villain on Buffy. Like, I've seen some amazing child acting, but this kid was not it.
Poor kid.
Sorry, kid.
Like,
you're probably really
now.
good at what you're doing now. Which is, I don't mean to rag on a little kid, but yeah, he's not a little kid anymore. He's probably your age.
Yeah,
he was probably 9 in that scene.
That's probably true. Oh my gosh.
He had the same problem as a lot of child characters have, which is that he grew a lot in between seasons. Mm-hmm. And they were like, oh, but vampires aren't supposed to age. And like, that's the whole problem with having any child vampires.
Yeah.
And so they had to write him out and not have him be a big villain. And I'm glad, because Spike is so much better.
Speaking of child vampires, Kirsten Dunst in Interview with a Vampire was sufficiently creepy to me as a kid.
Yeah.
Like, I
no
would
one can
love
top
to
that.
see her as a villain. Like, that would have been a kid villain I could get behind.
Yeah.
So good in that movie.
What was the character's name? Claudia.
Yeah. Oof.
Yeah, she was great. I haven't watched the Interview with the Vampire show more than like the first episode, but people love it.
Yeah, I have heard good things.
And that does have a child vampire character in it, but I think she's supposed to be about like 14. Maybe they're hoping the actor won't age too much before.
Yeah. Gosh, like those Stranger Things children. By the time we get the last season, they're all going to be like 25 or something.
Yeah,
and
it's pretty funny. The only music really featured on this episode, besides like the Buffy theme, is a song called, where did my thing go? That's weird. It's called Stupid Thing by a band called Nickel. And they had a second song in the episode that they're performing at the Bronze. It's called like 1,000 Nights or something like that. I didn't find that one as memorable, but Stupid Thing I really liked. And I downloaded it. It's now part of one of my playlists. So nice. I'll be listening.
I feel like a Bronze playlist could be a really good like kind of coffee or cocktail sipping playlist. I mean, I guess that's not that big of a stretch considering they get coffee and cocktails at the Bronze. Yeah. But,
But in general, I love the music that the show puts on. At the time, the show was, when it was originally aired, for the first 5 seasons, it was on the WB network. And all the music that is on the show is all music that's was published by Warner Brothers at the time. So they had this sort of relationship. And at the time, all the WB shows started featuring like a lot of cool music. And it became much more of a thing that there would always be like these like great musical acts that would show up, these like slightly indie acts or like right before they hit big acts. And it was always really good music. And I want to remind our listeners that back then there wasn't an internet where you could go and be like, what were all the songs that were played in this episode? You had to figure it out. Like sometimes you could catch it in the credits, but remember you couldn't pause.
Nope.
And sometimes somebody knew who the act was or they said the name during the show. But like a lot of times I'd be like, I have no idea who that music was. It was nice this time. I was like, hey, Stupid Thing by Nickel. That was so easy.
It was easy. I think in 1997, the extent of my usage of the internet was like in computer lab, typing in the Beanie Baby website address and browsing for 10 minutes. So we've come a long way.
Beanie Babies. That's hilarious.
I love it.
Well, I think that we've come to the point in our podcast where I need to ask you about this episode. Mm-hmm. Does it still slay?
I say absolutely.
I
got chills watching this one again and got so excited about going through the rest of the series because I was like, this feels like the kickoff one. Like, this is the perfect episode to kick this off.
I agree. It's the best.
Love it.
We met all the important characters. We got to see the high school dynamic. We got to see the mother-daughter dynamic. Mm-hmm. And Spike.
Oh, Spike.
What more could you ask for?
Spike.
Lean on us.
We are here for you.
You matter.
You are not alone.
Are you feeling overwhelmed? Not sure where to turn? The National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline is there for you 24/7. Call or text 988 or chat at 988sc.org. Whether you're having an emergency or you know someone who needs support now, they can help you take the next step towards finding hope and healing.
There is hope. 988sc.org.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky?
In line at the deli, I guess?
Haha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Bronze things. Things of bronze.
So we got a little bit of listener feedback. Not a ton, but some from some friends of the show and some from some new listeners who are brand new to Podcastica, which I find really exciting. So do you want to start us off there with reading some of them?
Sure. Our first bit of feedback comes from Andrew Sparkles.
I hope that's your real name.
I was just about to say that. If it's not, I still love it. He said, I believe that top 3 episodes for me are Hush, The Body, and Once More with Feeling. And I think those are absolutely excellent choices.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with any one of those. They're all really fantastic. I have a soft spot in my heart for Tabula Rasa.
Yes.
But, I mean, any of these 3 would be in my top 3 easily.
If I won't say too much for people who are still listening that haven't watched all the way through, but if I need a good cry, I will watch The Body.
Yeah.
Like, just get it all out every single time. It still hits me almost as much as it did the first time. So, yeah. Excellent
That's
choices.
season 5, so we have a little time before we'll get to that. Hush is season 4, and Once More with Feeling, that's season 6. All right.
Good episode.
Abby Peppers, another new member of the Podcastica family, and another name that I hope is real.
That is fun.
Says, oh my gosh, one of, if not my all-time favorite show. I can't think of anything specific other than maybe just covering every episode so I can relive them over and over, because I guess seeing each one about 30 times over the years isn't enough. Laugh cry emoji.
It's never enough.
It's never enough.
And our friend Randy Stevenson said, it's crazy to think that Spike was supposed to be a one-off character. Similar to Daryl in The Walking Dead, it seems like when a show lets an actor really own a small character, they end up with a breakout star. Absolutely.
I could not agree more, Randy.
Spike and Daryl are 2 of my all-time favorites, I think.
Yeah. I would agree with that. It's amazing, Kara, how on the same wavelength you and I are about all of this.
I know.
It's great. All right, and we have one voicemail from our friend Mark. Mark, by the way, is going to be on next time when we talk about the Halloween episode. So that's going to be really fun.
That is going to be a fun one.
All right.
Hello, Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. Hello to Kara and Penny. Wow. Yeah, this is the first episode that you're actually covering the full episode, which is pretty cool. Obviously, you're covering Buffy the Vampire Slayer, School Hard, Season 2, Episode 3. My name is Mark. I'm sorry I didn't actually mention that before. But, we're going to be cutting into this either by a trowel or pruning shears. That's a little segue into what we were talking, you guys probably were talking about with Sheila attacking a teacher and obviously Buffy burning down her former school, which obviously Snyder doesn't understand what the ramifications or the issues that were going on within that before she actually moved into Sunnydale. But this episode was really cool. I just love the fact that we get this introduction of Spike into Sunnydale, his hitting the car and the sign as he and Drusilla show up. I thought that was a huge, nice touch into him being introduced into this universe, as well as, just him going to, of all things, the Anointed One. That is after the Master had been demised. Obviously, the Anointed One took over, which is a little kid, but get the typical Spike showing him off as he's so cool. I killed 2 Slayers. I could do this. But throughout this, we have the whole story of Saint Vigius, as well as the parent-teacher conference that has to go on in Sunnydale at that point, where Buffy is being held accountable along with her cohort that was brought into Principal Snyder, which was Sheila, which I thought was pretty funny too, because now that Sheila is a consistent thing, but she once got, getting turned at one point. But I love that Buffy has to deal with this whole thing, and apparently St. Vitus, who apparently didn't make balloon animals, is the issue at hand in this particular episode. I just really did enjoy it for the fact that we get introduced to both Spike and Drusilla, and we get to see a little bit of that craziness of Drusilla, and we get to see how quirky and strange that Spike is. I thought Spike was always a great character because he is a bit comedic. He is a little bit foiled. He is evil, yes, and he does bite and kill people, but there's always this whole rapport between him and Buffy and Angel and everything, and that the whole, it's kind of like a triangle of Buffy between Angel and Spike and Buffy herself. And I always thought that was an interesting thing within the series itself. And Spike was definitely a character that we all love, we care for to some degree. I wouldn't say we all love him completely, but he has his moments. But I just love this scene where Angel in the actual school winds up having to deal with Spike, has Xander there ready. He's portraying himself as Angelus, and of course Spike sees through it, and it's amazing. And we find out at that point that Angel had sired Spike. Now, this is something that'll come in later, but obviously, Angel had converted Spike to being a vampire. And I just love how Spike fails at the end, but dispatches the Anointed One with the daylight, and then he just continues on as, it's just another day, and I have found my home in Sunnydale. So I just like it, and I love it. And then on top of that, quotes. I have two quotes that I just enjoy. You could edit that out if you want. But Spike saying, if every vampire stated that they were at the crucifixion, then it would be Woodstock. Meaning that every vampire had stated that they were at Woodstock, but obviously not. But it's him making a joke of it because vampires think they're so cool, and they were there at the time when Christ had fallen. And then there's one from Xander saying, I remember when Saturday night used to mean date night, and Cordelia goes, you surely don't. Meaning, and obviously these two are involved, but it's always her, bringing him back down to reality. But it's pretty cool. But I look forward to your thoughts on this particular episode, and I look forward to your thoughts on your continuous podcast episodes too, because I'll be following along. So great idea for a podcast. Looking forward to more stuff. Can't wait. Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
Yay. Thanks, Mark. Mark was the first person who raised his hand and said, I want to be a guest host. So he got his first choice of episodes, and that is the Halloween episode we're going to be covering next week. It's a classic.
So excited.
It's beloved. It's fun. It's got Spike.
Yes.
And a lot of other really great stuff. Mm-hmm. So that concludes the main part of the podcast.
If you'd like to get in touch or find out more about Podcastica, you can find all of our contact information at podcastica.com.
You can write into any of the podcasts there on podcastica.com or record a voice message there. You can also find links to all our social media pages and to all the other shows that Podcastica has, and there are so many shows. Anything you like, I'm sure that we have something for you.
I've been going through and re-listening to some of the stuff that I had missed out on, and I was listening along to the What Is From cast while I was watching season 3, and they have done an absolutely amazing job covering that show. And I was going back again, listening to a couple of my favorite episodes from the season. And now I feel like I have to do that with every show. So, like, What Is From Cast, I've been re-listening to. And then even though White Lotus, that one has just kind of wrapped up for this season, I found myself going back and re-listening to a couple of those episodes. So it's been fun.
That's a great podcast, and they're going to start season 2 coverage for White Lotus like any minute now.
Oof, that'll be fun.
That's going to be great. There's the Ahsoka Star Wars TV cast going on right now, and that's a lot of fun with Jonathan, James, and Kristen. And Daryl Dixon. The Daryl Dixon spinoff is about to start. It's today.
I'm so excited.
There's going to be, the cast of us will be covering that. So that'll be going on this week for all you Walking Dead fans. And if you're not a Walking Dead fan, that's fine. You can still hang out with us. We still think it's cool.
You can sit with us.
If you are enjoying what we do, please, hit like, give us a rating, follow, subscribe, whatever is the applicable word on the platform that you use. It really helps other listeners to find us. Tell your friends if they are also fans of Buffy that we would really love for them to listen. Oh, also, be sure to subscribe because you don't want to miss an episode.
For sure. And like we mentioned earlier, next time on our show, we'll be covering season 2, episode 6, Halloween. And we'll be joined by Mark Kirkman, host of Adrenaline Cinema podcast and Panels to Pixels. You can find out more about Mark at Pirate Core Entertainment, and that's pirate normal spelling CORPS entertainment.com.
Thank you all for joining us.
You get the hell away from my daughter! Yay, Joyce.
All right, that's the end of the non-spoiler section. If you want to avoid spoilers, stop listening in 3, 2, 1, now.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah, that's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
It was so hard not to bring these up.
Yeah. So many great things and moments that happen in this episode that pay off later. Like the "You get the hell away from my daughter," which comes up again at the end of season 2 when Joyce and Spike meet again, and she's like, "You look familiar."
I love that. Have we met?
And he's like, yeah, you hit me with an axe?
It's like, remember, get the hell away from my daughter? I was like, oh, I love Joyce and Spike interactions.
They're amazing.
So
Over the next
much.
several seasons, like, we get a lot of Joyce and Spike moments, and my favorite is the one where she goes to the tomb that he's living in, and she's like, oh, I love what you've neglected to do with the place. Like, she's always kind, no matter the circumstance.
And he truly respects her.
Yeah, he loves Joyce.
Yep, comes to care about her. Like, after, that in the body, Spike's reaction to finding out about Joyce's death always hit me really hard.
Yeah, he really is mourning.
That's what makes him. He's not like other vampires.
He's not. There's a scene in this episode, and we'll be covering it. It's I think it's in Innocence when they've reassembled the judge, and the judge like touches Spike and Drusilla and is like, "You're tainted with emotions like love," and I'm like, "Yeah, that's what makes Spike and Drusilla awesome." And then he touches, evil Angel, and he's like, "No,
oh gosh,
there's
he's like, this one's clean."
Yeah, he's pure evil. We're good.
And that's the thing. Like, Angelus is so much more terrifying than Spike is. Like, Spike is a fun villain, and Angel just like makes me so anxious. And later,
he's cruel,
so cruel.
He plays the long game. Like And he messes with your head. Like, Angelus is... Oh, he's a horrible villain. I mean, he's a great villain, but he's really scary.
Well, and, finding out about eventually how he is the one who eventually sires Drusilla, and he is the reason that she was dripping crazy before her, death and then rebirth as a vampire. He is just like when you talk about soulless with Angelus, he is unlike anybody else, and we find out that's why he's so notorious. I will say that scene at the very beginning with Spike crashing into the Sunnydale sign, just how iconic that is, and how it comes up a couple more times in the series. I think, was it in the next season? In
season 3, when he returns to Sunnydale, he squashes the sign again. And then in the very, very final episode,
the finale of finales,
the sign gets knocked over again. But I can't remember if he's the one who drives into it or if he's just sort of like there when it happens. But the sign definitely gets knocked over again.
That, and getting into like our first hint of the kind of Slayer lore that we get to explore later on, where he references killing, the first Slayer in the Boxer Rebellion, and we get to see that a few seasons from now, which I think is one of my favorite.
Oh, it's such a good episode.
And then the other Slayer in the 1970s on the subway. And I enjoy him saying in this episode, like, she begged for her life, and she didn't. But I like to think that's Spike just bragging and exaggerating.
Right. I mean, he's part of Spike's thing. And he admits this in season 5 of Angel. He and Angel have a conversation about this. And Spike's like, it was never about the evil for me. It was about the fun. And because Angel is like, yeah, I was always trying to figure out the way to cause the most pain and to be the most evil. And Spike's like, yeah, that wasn't my thing. I was just having a good time. And it's so true when you look at, like, over the course of many seasons. Like, Spike is always trying to either defeat Buffy or just have a good time. And, like, that's his life in a nutshell. And Buffy, like, constantly puts him in his place. And oh, it's so delightful. Some of the best Spike stuff is in season 4. I love that whole series of episodes.
That's such a good season. Well, and he's almost more of like this little chaos demon trickster figure.
He's impish. That's right.
Yeah. He really is. And Angel is just straight up sadistic.
Brooding, dark, mean, psychotic. Like,
it's so good though.
It's a fun contrast. The two of them are so different, and yet, they share this lineage. They marauded around the planet together for who knows how long with their two girlfriends, and they hate each other now. Oh, it's great.
They do have a fun dynamic. That like, as soon as Darla gets introduced and expanded on more, and anytime we have episodes with Drew, Spike, Darla, and Angel, I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's always fascinating. But listening to him first reference the Slayers that he's killed was one of my favorite parts about this episode, because it's so exciting where we're going.
Yeah. I remember when I saw this episode the first time and I didn't know, what was going to happen in future seasons, and I was like, he's killed 2 Slayers? And then I was like, there's been like thousands of Slayers and they've all been killed by someone.
And Spike has been around for a decently long time.
Yeah, a couple hundred years. But they do reveal when they do the backstory of it that he like went looking to kill a Slayer. Like it was like a quest.
Which I could see why that would be a fun challenge for Spike.
Yeah. Like, how else are you going to organize your life when you're a vampire, right? Like,
right.
You need goals.
Yeah. And the idea, when we see him, we know his nickname is William the Bloody. And in the future, when we get to see him as a human kind of pining away, I love the idea that that is the characteristic, that trait that he carried with him into his, afterlife as a vampire. It's almost like that's a little bit of his like superpower. Now he still has that ability to care, and
he loves he loves Drusilla. He loves her. And other vampires there's no love there, but he loves Drusilla.
That's the problem with, I don't know, we probably shouldn't talk about this yet, but I'm sure you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The one action and episode that Spike does that I hated, and I know James Marsters hated, and I didn't think it fit with his character at all. And it's just, I was thinking about that. I couldn't help it, like, watching this episode, because this is the first time we see him, and I know it's a long way away, but it's already bothering me just seeing the introduction of Spike. I'm like, why did they have to do that to him?
I know exactly what you're talking about, exactly which episode, and it is very out of character for him. They tried to sort of make it make sense, but it's also out of character for the show. It's a place that the show doesn't usually go. Like, there's plenty of violence and evil acts and things in the show, but that particular type of violence doesn't usually happen, and I would rather... I don't need it in my entertainment, It's the same complaint I have about some other shows, too. It's like, you don't need to do that for it to be good sci-fi.
Game of Thrones, it became a bit gratuitous, almost. Even though I can understand the argument that it fits with the culture. But in this show, I liked how we were in our kind of little bubble in the Buffyverse where that wasn't really
it just wasn't part of it. There's an amazing science fiction show called The 100. Have you watched it?
Yes, I loved that show, particularly the first 3 seasons.
Yeah, I always tell people just don't watch season 6 and 7. But that is another show that goes through 7 seasons of post-apocalypse with very, very little in the way of sexual violence. And I really appreciate that about it. Yeah. It's not necessary to tell an exciting story with well-rounded characters who have plenty of trauma.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to worry about that.
We arguably see Buffy dealing with a little bit of PTSD at the beginning of season 2 after dying at the hands of the Master. She's hypervigilant, and you see what kind of effect it's had on her. I think that is a much more interesting route to take than any sort of sexual violence. Like, it's not necessary.
I agree.
And it'll take us a long way to get to that scene with Spike and Buffy, but I know we'll have a lot to say.
We sure will have a lot to say about it. All right. I feel like we've adequately covered School Hard. It's been so fun. So we'll be back in a week, guys, and we'll be covering the Halloween episode. I hope you all will write in or call in with some feedback, because the more the merrier. I always say that. And thank you all for listening.
Absolutely. Can't wait till next time.
Bye-bye.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details. With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.